Yeah. I mean, look, Western medicine is fantastic if you have, an acute disorder. I'm not against Western medicine or pharmaceuticals when appropriate. I just think that we're too quick to take them to, deal with things that might be better addressed in other ways.
I agree. And it's also, why does it have to be one or the other? Why does it have to be pharmaceutical drugs are evil or they're great? No, it's like sometimes they're great and sometimes they're evil. And, the problem is profit. Once profit gets in the way or profit gets into the mix, that becomes the sole thing you're chasing. It's not like, let's make sure that what we're doing is the most beneficial to society and to human beings possible. No. Let's make sure we make a fuckload of money, the most money we could possibly make, because getting something passed by the FDA is a huge process. It costs millions and millions of dollars. So by the time you actually do get a product to market, you have to protect that product. You have to protect that money. It's all about money and profit.
The best thing to do is just be proactive enough about your health so that you can do whatever's under your control to prevent you from getting any kind of, acute disease. Not to say that it doesn't happen, because of course it does. But, I think there's lots of things that could be more deeply explored than our culture really is, sort of permittable to in kind of our, what we accept as mainstream or not. Like I started recently going to acupuncture, which I'd never done before.
Do you think it was bullshit before? Yeah, I've done it.
No, I didn't think it was bullshit. I mean, I'm a pretty rational guy, so the idea of sticking, sort of like the idea of meridians and sticking needles into my forehead and all, I was like, I didn't really, I wasn't an immediate, somebody who's going to immediately jump on that bandwagon. But I know a lot of people who have benefited from it, and I was having some things that I wanted addressed, like particularly sleep. Like I've been challenged by sleep lately. And so I went to see my friend who's a Chinese medicine doctor, and he started doing it on me, and it was really helpful.
Yeah.
It was really helpful. And it's so interesting, the idea of like balancing energy systems and, kind of how it works. I mean, it's so ornate. And this, my friend he's studying Chinese medicine, and he's still kind of in his residency. So he's working underneath like this Chinese dude who's been practicing this forever. And they come in, and the guy, like literally this Chinese medicine doctor, the only thing he wants to do is take my pulse on both wrists. And he takes it with his thumb in a couple different places. And apparently his touch is so finely attuned that he can tell all kinds of things about like where you're at based upon the pressure of your pulse and, the frequency and the tempo and all these sorts of things. So he wants to do that. And then he wants to look at your tongue. And he can tell by looking at your tongue like all sorts of crazy shit about where you're at.
Do you believe it?
It's super interesting.
Do you believe it, or do you believe in the possible placebo effect?
I think the placebo effect is powerful. I'm into like trying anything. Why not, right? Like, contempt prior to investigation.
That's a good way to
get hoodwinked.
Yeah, something's going to happen.
Well, I mean, I think
with a dude.
But is that better than saying I'm not going to explore that because I think it's BS without having any direct experience?
No, but I mean, it's nice to have some sort of proof.
Yeah,
something. Some
I mean,
sort of information.
how do you prove? I mean, I think that
you run some tests.
Some tests on what? Like, so for example,
have the guy prove that he can actually do that.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, all I can tell you is that I was having issues with sleep and relaxation, and this seemed to benefit and alleviate my problem to some extent. So
right.
Is that placebo? Is that the herbs that he prescribed me? Is that the acupuncture?
It certainly could be those things, because you got to think about like sleep. Oftentimes is psychological. Oftentimes sleep is a matter of your ability to relax, and we've all been in that situation before where you have to be at work in 5 hours, and if I go to sleep right now, I can get 4 hours sleep, and you look at that clock, and for whatever reason you're stuck in that thing because you know that you have to go to sleep right this moment, and the pressure of that keeps you awake even if you're tired. If you take action to try to alleviate that by acupuncture or whatever it is, the mere act of taking action will shift your focus into a cure, and you can oftentimes start thinking that whatever this placebo effect is real. I'm not doubting that this guy has a real a possible gift or whatever it is, but wouldn't it be nice if we just can prove it? Like, wouldn't you want to prove that? Wouldn't you want to just work with a bunch of people and find out, oh, look, he's right. This guy does have a gallbladder issue, or he's right. This guy does I just met a lot of fuckers.
Yeah, or doing your TV
zone
show,
healers and all these
You're becoming much more cynical about this kind of stuff.
Even before that, there was a guy that was working with all these MMA guys that I know, and he was a zone healer. And he's like would press the back of your head and tell you from the spots that he was pressing what was wrong with you. But it was bullshit. Like he would like press harder here. Does that hurt when I do that? Like, yeah, because you're pressing harder, stupid. Mm-hmm. What do you think, I'm dumb? And like we had this conversation. I'm like, how exactly is this working? And he was like, well, your body's ability to heal itself is dependent upon freeing your energy. And how does that work? How does that work? How does that work? And after badgering him with a bunch of different questions, he essentially admitted it was all placebo effect. And I was like, Jesus fucking Christ. And he was charging like $160 to get adjusted, and he would touch your head.
Was this part of your show? Or was
no,
this just your
this
personal...
is a dude that I knew that was in the mixed martial arts world. He was dealing with all these different fighters and jiu-jitsu guys that had back injuries and neck. And he was a good chiropractor. But this zone healing thing, as he was getting into it, the more I would like listen to it, I was like, okay, what you're telling me you could touch the back of someone's head and press spots and tell if they have a thyroid condition? Mm-hmm. The fuck out of here. That's not true. That's just not true. And he kind of admitted it wasn't true. He kind of admitted that ultimately what he's doing is, if you believe in what he's doing, it will fix what you have that's wrong with you. Because ultimately, there's another great Radiolab podcast on placebo effect. And there was one of them where they were talking about this guy. They hypnotized this kid who had this insane wart problem, skin warts. Like, have you ever seen people that have like warts all over their skin, where it becomes incurable by medication? And they convinced this kid that they had hypnotized him and that it was going to go away, and it went away on his arm. His arm was like completely free of warts, which just never happens when someone reaches such an acute level of infection like this kid had. And so in a sense, it is real. In a sense, it's not hooey. As long as you're gullible, as long as you're willing to wholeheartedly jump in and believe it. And I think that might be what's going on with acupuncture. That might be what's going on with a lot of, quote-unquote Chinese medicine or Eastern medicine. I think if you believe that they have found you a cure, your body starts producing whatever it actually needs to fix whatever ailment you have, and thus it becomes actually effective. So the method is not correct. The method is a trick, but that trick is effective. And that effective trick does convince your brain to fix whatever the problem is. And it's really baffling. And it only works if you're not a discerning, critical person. Because if you're a discerning person who's skeptical, it's not going to work. Because then you're going to hyper-analyze whatever it is, or the potential possibilities of whatever it is, and it won't work, which is weird.
There's no shortage of snake oil salesmen pitching all kinds of crazy healing techniques. No doubt. But I think that in fairness, acupuncture and traditions of Chinese medicine, these go back, hundreds, if not thousands of years.
So does witchcraft.
I think so does slavery. Yeah, but people are not going to see witchcraft doctors in West LA.
Well, they would. What I mean? Believe
so
me.
I think that
they would.
I think that the history and the sort of traditions behind it, there is merit there.
Is there though? But what scientifically?
I don't know. I mean, I'm the wrong guy to ask about that, I think.
But if you're the wrong guy to ask about that, you're probably the wrong guy to talk about it, though,
maybe.
Right?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Probably. But I think that listen, I just know from my friend who's been studying this. I mean, he's been in school like for crazy long periods of time.
But do you say school? Do you do air quotes?
No, I think it's essentially like medical school.
It's nothing like medical school. How about that? Well, you're sticking needles in people and lighting little incense.
But in terms of like studying physiology and studying chemistry and organic chemistry and all that kinds of things.
Right, but it's like on energy meridians and chakras and all that jazz, right? I mean, isn't that like what it's kind of based on?
There's some aspects of that, for sure. But there's a lot of herbal medicine, I think, too.
For whatever reason, I thought you said urban medicine.
No,
herbal or
the study of herbs.
Right. I mean, so there's certainly some herbs that have medicinal values. One of my favorite herbs has massive amounts of medicinal values. Oregano, marijuana. But I just think that the sticking the needles in you, it's probably more that you're doing something You're doing something to deal with it, and in doing something, your body reacts. The weirdest thing about
isn't that
drugs,
kind of half of what like sort of psychotherapy is too?
Sure.
Just the willingness to show up for it is, to walk through the door and to engage somebody else is almost,
no doubt,
half the battle.
Yeah, no doubt. There's definitely merit to that. I mean, and also, like I said, like the idea of any, fill in the blank, whatever type of modality, any type of therapy that's actually effective, even though it doesn't have any real scientific basis to it, the effect is still real. You still get a benefit from it. Like this zone healing shit. Like if you believe in it, it will affect you, which is kind of fucking crazy. It's kind of crazy that in some ways there's merit to it.
Well, I mean, let's just talk about meditation and mindfulness practices, right? So if you want to apply your sort of, analytical perspective to that, you can draw the same conclusions. And
really?
I could tell you, well, I mean, listen, anybody who has a consistent meditation practice will tell you that, it improves their life.
Right, but do you
know
that...
So is that a placebo?
No.
Like, is there a provable, thing that, sort of could you apply that same, litmus test to that? Because this is another sort of non-Western, approach to, being healthier.
But there's been a lot of studies done on meditation.
I'm sure there's
been a lot of studies done on the effectiveness of mindfulness and the actual effect on the mind.
But it's an ethereal thing, right?
Yes. But it's not lying to you. It's not saying that this frog potion that I give you is going to cure your cancer and then your body cures the cancer. There's a certain aspect of meditation that's undeniably beneficial. But that aspect of it has really been scientifically analyzed. They've done all these fMRI scans on people that are Buddhist monks that have spent years and years meditation. They've done scans on people that were in deep REM sleep and different stages of the mind. I mean, there's a lot of scientific work that's been done on what we call meditation, achieving certain brain waves, achieving certain states. Those aren't fake, and in a sense, placebo effect isn't fake either, right? Because every drug that exists because there's a receptor for it in the human mind. The reason why those drugs are effective is because the mind knows how to actually produce that effect in some sort of limited quantity on its own. That's one of the reasons why placebo effects work. That's the reason why we have opiate receptors and cannabinoid receptors and all these different things and processes that the mind can engage in with or without medication. That's why those medications have an effect on the body. So in that sense, placebos, if you believe in them, work. There really is something there.
Isn't it even more than that, though? Like the placebo effect works even when you know it's a placebo.
Sometimes.
Right?
Sometimes, but not as much.
Study about that?
There was, yeah, there was. And that's, I think, what we're talking about, just doing something. The act of doing something to deal with it makes you focus on whatever that issue is. I mean, how many issues that people have health-wise are just due to a complete lack of awareness of their physical body, just stumbling through life on this drunken momentum of coffee and donuts and stress and cigarettes and traffic and pollution and stress and cigarettes and coffee and donuts, and then just the mere act of taking the time to reassess like what it means to be a person, to just stop and pause and give thought to your day-to-day existence might be enough to reset a lot of the processes that are in place.